If you are so inclined, you may turn to page 647. You may find yourself singing about strength and might and salvation. Ozi v'zimratya v'yehi Yeshua. Ozi v'zimratya v'yehi Yeshua. Hi, Rabbi.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I wore my colonial collar for everyone.
Oh, good.
I know.
Wow.
You're
Happy
welcome.
Thanksgiving. Well, on that note, is my microphone up? Can you hear me okay?
Sound good.
Great. On that note, I was going to say, but that my Thanksgiving this year came with an extra large side helping of Jewish guilt. I don't know if anyone else was experiencing this, but it's a strange time to be celebrating a holiday of abundance and joy when it feels like there's so much darkness in the world. There's so much suffering, and especially we see a lot of suffering related to our own people. But I understand that guilt is not actually a very helpful emotion all of the time. And that it doesn't necessarily make the world a better place or serve to relieve the suffering of others. So I am thinking this Shabbat about moving from a place of guilt to a place of what I'm calling glimmers. That in the winter we can look for glimmers of hope, glimmers of connection, glimmers of beauty, things that make us feel like we can move on beyond guilt. One of the glimmers I saw this Thanksgiving and this week is the story of these brothers who cooked thousands of dinners for people. They used the cooking equipment at Guaranteed Rate Field to cook thousands of dinners for migrants across the city of Chicago. Another one is the glimmer of, we think, around 50 hostages being released in Israel, where they were being held in Gaza, and hopefully being welcomed back with love and safety. And so as we move into Shabbat, we're moving into Shabbat and saying we're going to take time for joy and rest and being together, and hopefully time without too much guilt, but to be able to see the world a little bit differently and to just be able to bask in being together. So we're going to begin with some light and some lighting of candles, and I'm honored to call up Leo Rosen to be our candle lighter. We are on page 120.
Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We celebrate the sweetness of Shabbat with a blessing over wine. and we are on page 123
I know
for
you
the
know it.
Kiddush, and I'm going to invite you all to rise in body or in spirit.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron l'maseh v'reishit Ki hu yom techila l'mikraye kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim ki vanu v'charta v'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha v'ahava uvratzon Hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
L'chaim. Please be seated. We are on page 138 for Lechado D. We use Lechado D to try to imagine Shabbat a little bit like a wedding. We're taking time for joy and celebrating, and at the end, we'll stand and we'll greet Shabbat like we greet a bride that's coming down the aisle. So I think we're doing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. We'll sit for the first, and then we'll stand for the last.
Lechado di likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Lechado di likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Shamor v'zachor v'ribor echad Ishmianu el hamyuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad L'shem u'tiferet v'liti la Lechado di likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Lechado di likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha Ki makor habracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof ma'aseh v'machashava techila Lechado di likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Lechado di likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Hitoriri Ki ba'orech u'mi'ori Uri shidaberi Kivod Adonai alayich nigla Lechado di likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Lechado di likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam b'simcha ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה Lechado di likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Lechado di likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela
Please be seated. We turn to page 142 for Shalom Aleichem, which is a prayer about angels blessing us with peace. In Jewish tradition, angels are not necessarily winged creatures, but they are messengers of God, and they can come in many different forms. And so we're essentially praying for any kind of message from God that we can be people who work towards peace. We're on page 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Ning Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boechem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nil Shalom Malachei HaShalom Malachei Elyon. Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitzem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We move to page 146 and we rise in body and in spirit for the Baruch Hu.
Lai, 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 lai. 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam vaed. Lai, 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 lai.
We turn to page 152. We take a breath, we take a moment for quiet for our prayer Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Please be seated. We're on page 154.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha v'veitecha uv'lachtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha uv'shartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher otzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim v'hiot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Emet. We're on page 158 for Micha Mocha. When I was growing up, the synagogue where I grew up, the tradition was for Micha Mocha, people would physically get up every time and do a full hora around the room. I'm not going to make us do that
no
right
one
now,
looked
I
excited
promise.
about that at
No. We're staying in our seats, but this is a prayer that celebrates dancing and connecting through movement and rejoicing, and so I hope you'll at least, bop your head a little bit or give a little shake as we sing Micha Mocha together.
Lai 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 Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai Micha Mocha nedar b'kodesh Nora tehilot osei feleh Nora tehilot osei feleh מלכותך ראובנך וכהים לפני משה ומרים זה אלינו ואמרו זה אלינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד
Turn to page 160 for Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim
That beautiful Hashkivenu was written by our very own Ethan Parcell, so we hold a lot of pride in our hearts when we sing it. We turn to page 162 for Vishamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם והניעו בני ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We rise in body and in spirit and turn to our Amidah on page 164.
Adonai, Ananana sifatai tiftach, Ananana ufi agid tehilatecha, Ananana Adonai, Ananana sifatai tiftach, Ananana ufi agid tehilatecha, Ananana Adonai, Ananana sifatai tiftach, Ananana ufi agid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanura, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, u'Mevi Geula livnei v'neihem, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים וחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים. ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לישני עפר. ומידו מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We take time now for quiet and breath and personal reflection and prayer. If you're standing, when you're done, please be seated.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael.
We know that there are so many who are directly experiencing the brokenness of the world, whose lives are being torn apart by war, by physical struggle, by sickness. And so we take a moment for Misha Berach to send prayers of healing and strength and hope to anybody who could use an extra prayer. We're sending prayers this week to those whose lives are torn apart by the war in Israel and in Gaza. We send prayers to both Israelis and to Palestinians. And we're praying specifically for those in our community who have family who have been touched by this war, who have been called up for military duty, or who are being held captive by Hamas. We're praying for Sachar ben Tamar, Oneg Shlomo ben Esther, Dror ben Dina, Dror Menashe ben Hannah Elisheva, Boaz ben Ronit, Nir Vinik, Kesem bat Esther. These are all family of Amnon Moradi. We're praying for Yahel, Adi, Yarden, Amit, Or, Noam, Liran, Omri, Ivri, Ayala, and Yuval, nieces and nephews of Gal Bernstein and Sagit Halpern. For Israel Dekarker, Sagi Dekarker, Nir Shimon Binyamini, Adam Nisim Din Yamini, and Oral Dekarker, loved ones of Yonuk Dekarker, Shlomit Shochman and Rona Golan, loved ones of Shira Levy, Mark Schwartz, loved one of Karen Pulver, and Herschel Goldberg Polin, loved one of Linda Milberg. If there are names you'd like to add to this list, anyone you know who could use an extra prayer of hope, please say their name out loud as I pass my hand around the room. We send them our Misha Berach. We are on page 677.
A little different than we usually do, just because I think that sometimes we need to shake ourselves up and not always say the same melodies for our prayers. So on the fourth down, page 677, you'll see the text of Elna Refanala. That comes directly from Torah, and we'll add the term Refuah Shlema for a speedy recovery as well. Elna Refanala, Elna Refanala, Elna Refanala, Refuah Shlema.
Just take a moment as the names of those who we're praying for, who have been submitted by our entire community, continue to be shared. We say, may they experience healing. Shabbat Shalom. There's something about the weekend of Thanksgiving Shabbat that feels a little more intimate and casual. Even though there are a lot of you here, I feel like, how are you all doing? How's it going? Shabbat Shalom. Good, good, oh good. Okay, great. I have to be honest that living in Chicago around this time of year tends to give me a sense of what is called anticipatory grief. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't even have to explain myself. Amazing. For those of you who aren't immediately laughing, anticipatory grief is when you're grieving the loss of something before it even happens. I experience some anticipatory grief because as soon as Thanksgiving rolls around, I start to think about how quickly the winter holidays are going to pass us by. I love the move from Halloween into Thanksgiving into Hanukkah. Christmas is not my personal holiday religiously, but I love that the city gets covered in beautiful lights. And so my grief lies in knowing that this time is going to move very quickly, and that once New Year's Eve rolls around in what just feels like a few weeks from now, all the holidays are over, but there are still 3 months of winter left, a whole quarter of the year. Who designed this system? I always wonder, they should be spreading them out a little bit more. But my real question is, what can we do to feel a sense of enjoyment once these holidays are over? I have to be honest that my first response to this question or to this experience is never particularly rabbinic. I always think, I'll buy dozens of candles. I'll fill my home with candles, and I'll never feel depressed about winter again. Thankfully, there's part of me that knows that this response just doesn't cut it. And so I turn to our gorgeous tradition to look for better answers. This week's Torah portion, Vayetze, tells the story of Jacob. And Jacob is wandering in the desert alone. I imagine that Jacob moving through the desert is similar in some ways to us trying to deal with the winter. It's quiet, it's dark, sometimes it's lonely, and things seem pretty bleak. So Jacob naturally wants to move through this challenging place as quickly as he can. But the Torah tells us that as Jacob is wandering through the desert, it gets dark. And so Jacob has no other choice but to lie down and try to get some rest. It's only once Jacob stops and takes in some of that quiet and embraces his place in the darkness that he's able to achieve a sense of clarity. The clarity comes in the form of a surprisingly beautiful dream. Jacob dreams that in the darkness, a ladder appears before him, reaching up into the sky. And he watches as angels or messengers of God climb up and down the ladder, and he feels a connection between heaven and earth. Jacob wakes up, and he proclaims a simple yet powerful message. He says, God was in this place this whole time, and I just didn't realize it. This is a striking portrayal of a divine moment. Jacob was not looking for a spiritual encounter. He was probably pretty miserable, alone and cold in the desert. But he's given the gift of seeing that there can be meaning and connection even in the darkness. Jacob wakes up, and I think he has that experience that many of us had when we wake up from a dream that has surprised us or touched us. He looks around and he sees his surroundings differently. God was in this place this whole time, and he just didn't realize it. How do we find God or holiness or spiritual connection in bleak places and in cold moments? The Irish writer Carrie Ní de Cartai answers this question in her writing about the Celtic concept that she calls, or they call, thin places. She writes that our job in times that feel bleak is to seek out thin places. These are places that, she writes, they make us feel larger than ourselves, as though we are held in a place between worlds and beyond experience. I'll say that again. Thin places are places that make us feel larger than ourselves, held in a place between worlds and beyond experience. To de Cartai, the purpose of seeking out a thin place is to be in a space that allows us to contemplate our lives and our world differently. Places that allow for time to slow down, places to be like Jacob, to dream, to see the holiness around us. As we move into this winter, I want us to think about how we can seek out our own thin places. What are the places that make us see the holiness that surrounds us every day? For some of us, it may be walking by the lake, or even just going around the block, or reading a beautiful book. We can use the winter as a time to dream, to lay down and let the quiet moments of holiness and connection surprise us. I hope that the next few months for us all will be a time for seeking out beauty in darkness and warmth in the cold. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. I get to invite you all to rise for Aleinu. We are on page 586.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. As we are moving into winter, our community is looking for ways to serve those who have experienced extra trouble this winter. So we are collecting gently used or new coats to support newly arrived migrants at shelters around the city. We're looking for gently used or new children's coats of all sizes, gently used or new women's and men's coats, specifically sizes extra small, small, and medium. They will take other sizes, but they're hoping to get some smaller ones. They're looking for baby snowsuits and toddler jackets, size 2T, 3T, and 4T. And there are very specific dates that these jackets can be dropped off at the temple. Sadly, we can't accept them anytime. So on our website, you can find the specific dates where you can come and drop off the jackets. I would read them out loud right now, but you would not remember them. On Wednesday, November 29th, there is a gathering to talk about grief and loss, community and coping during adverse times with Tommy Sheridan. He is a behavior associate. She.
Okay.
Thank you. Is a behavior associate and grief and loss coach who focuses on anxiety and CBT treatment. And it's going to be with her and Rabbi Conover. Do you want to do the next announcement?
Yeah.
Great.
I'll mess something up just to keep things even. Don't worry.
I already have. Yes, thank you.
So on Wednesday as well at 7:30, online only, it's Creative Nida, an exploration with Rabbi Diane Tracht and Zahava Harris, people we love, about rituals around the different sort of cycles of women and those that want to join and participate in this. A lot came at me just now while I was reading through it.
Yeah, sorry.
So
I
all
threw
of a sudden
one
I
at
was
you
like,
without
oh my
looking what it
God,
was.
every word I don't want to say out loud right now.
I got
Okay,
this.
all right,
So it's
thank you.
a set of rules and rituals around menstruation and sexual activity. So
All right.
if you want to join for that conversation on Wednesday the 29th, please join us online at 7:30 p.m.
Now you know how I was as a teenager.
Yes.
And next, and on December 1st, on Friday, we have our Or Chadash LGBTQ+ Shabbat. That'll be mixed presents and exciting. And I also, when we have special family visiting in town, it's an opportunity for me to just give an extra layer of love. So I just want to say I'm grateful for my clergy partnership. I'm also grateful that every Sabbath I get to indulge in such incredible musicianship and love and beauty. So I'm grateful for what I like to refer to as our Sabbath trio, and all of you, and thank you. And I'm glad when your family's around, and just lots of love.
Welcome. I'm trying not to call them out specifically, but you know. Anyways, okay. We are going to turn now towards the close of our service. We end with a moment of memory with our Mourners Kaddish, to just pour our hearts out to those who we have lost and those who we are missing. If there's somebody you're thinking of or remembering this week, someone who has died in the last week, in the last month, in the last year, in previous years at this time, or somebody whose name you would just like to share out loud, please do so as I pass my hand around the room. We add to those names Stanley Gross, Yolanda Saul, Henry Rose, Sylvia Allweiss, Francis Amsterdam, Joseph Arnove, Julius Barter, Audrey Biter, Matthew Buxbaum, Dorothy Dansker, Scott DeGraff, Ariana Elster, Nathan Feinstein, Eugene Fuhrer, Barbara Goldstein, Marla Grabel, David Gradman, Marion Holzer, Michael Horowitz, Bernice Horwich, Maxine B. Englander, Dr. Lawrence Krugel, Renee Kurjan, Joseph Lowe, Steve Narefsky, Morton Newman, Rebecca Neuschatz, William E. Paglin, Charles Plax, Dorothy Popper, Marilyn K. Potter, Robert H. Rolsky, Lois Graf Rubin, Sidney Savitz, Claudia Sample, Richard Schreier, Seymour Shiner, Celia Smith, Sylvia Sorkin, Benjamin Steffen, Joseph Vollerman, and George G. Wardy. May their memories be for a blessing. We rise and turn to our Mourners Kaddish on page 598.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalmad yivrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agalau v'zman kari v'imru. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach leolam l'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudashah le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Oseh shalom b'mromav Yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Oseh shalom b'mromav Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru. Amen. You can, if you would, stay standing. I mean, don't do it to yourselves. But you could turn to page 647 if you care to, or you can just let these words kind of wash over you. Ozi v'zimrat yad v'yehi li l'shua. Ozi v'zimrat yad v'yehi li l'shua. Ozi
Shabbat Shalom. We hope it's a Shabbat of joy and rest and peace. Please come join us in Betty Port Hall for an oneg, for some sweets, to say hello to one another.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. We're getting the
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Have a good week.
Join you.
Shabbat shalom.
fetus.
Hi.
Where are we?
Mitchell, I heard you.
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom.
everybody.
I don't know why we're not.
Shabbat
Shalom,
shalom.
everyone. Shalom.
Bye-bye. Have a
Here
good
we
week, y'all.
Karen, Shabbat shalom. Where are you?
Patrick,
Hello.
how are you?
I am alive.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going.
You're alive? I'm so
Yeah.
glad to hear that.
Bye, Rita.
Bye.
Shabbat shalom.
Sorry,
Shabbat
Tina.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye-bye. Have a good week, y'all.
You
Have
too.
a good week. May all blessings be upon you.
Shabbat shalom.
Jonathan Smith has emerged as the top target for the Michigan State vacancy, but nothing has been finalized yet. Michigan State vetted program builders who epitomize the blue-collar mentality at the university.
I can't seem to end the stream. Oh, there we go.